Phyllis Jones of Moulscombe.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the Government and Ofgem published a Smart Systems and Flexibility Plan in July 2017, which outlines a series of actions to support the transition to a smart energy system. This includes an assessment of changes in our energy system and measures to address the barriers to storage, whether in the form of home batteries or the range of grid-scale storage technologies.
I thank the Noble Lord, the Minister, for his reply. I'm sure the government's thought this through, but as nuclear subsidies increase and the cost of national grid electricity rises, there will be more and more people who move to solar and domestic storage of energy, which means the people still using the national grid will actually be the poorest in society, the people who can't afford all these extra measures. Has the government thought through how the poor will be relieved of paying for very, very expensive electricity?
Well, obviously there will be changes as more and more people make use of storage, and that will have an effect on the grid, because obviously if some people increase their use of storage, it's possible they might even be able to go off-grid in the future. And the Noble Baroness is right to draw the attention of the House to that issue. That is a matter for Ofgem, and they can certainly look at that to make sure they can create a level playing field for all consumers.
My Lord, I declare my interest in energy as in the register. Is my noble friend aware, I'm sure he is, that the offshore wind producers are now saying they can produce electricity at £62.50 per megawatt hour. And of course, if we go for commercial storage, that will be considerably lower. Does that not cast a shadow over the costs of the contract at Hinkley Point C, which are for £92.50 for the next 35 years indexed? And isn't it not time to question some of these lavish expenditures which are having very little effect on carbon reduction and greatly increasing the charges to poor consumers?
My Lords, at this stage I don't want to get into the wider question of costs of Hinkley B, and I think it'd be rather dangerous, Hinkley C, sorry, dangerous for me to go down that route. But the Noble Lord is right to say that increased use of home battery storage, possibly in years to come, greater use of batteries in cars as a means of storage, a greater use of other forms of storage, which the Noble Baroness referred to, and I think my noble friend referred to. He's probably aware that we already have about 5 gigawatts of storage in the system, which is mainly pumped hydro. All of that has implications for the costs throughout the grid, and that obviously will need to be addressed.
An audit being carried out of lithium resources worldwide, or is it all being left to market forces?
So far, we've seen the cost of lithium-ion batteries drop by some 50% over the last 5 years. That's since 2012, which seems to imply that resources of lithium are more or less okay, and market resources are driving them down. I haven't figures on what the long-term estimates of the quantities of lithium are, but obviously that will be taken into account by the market in due course.
With respect to the previous question, wouldn't it be a good idea for the government to follow that rather carefully so that the consumer can have a realistic price? Because solar cells are expensive, storage batteries are expensive. Those selling them don't always give straightforward information on this. I think it would be a good idea, wouldn't it, for the government to look at this in some detail so consumers could be given reliable advice on the cost of such storage.
Lords, the cost, as I said in answer to the previous question, of lithium-ion batteries has come down considerably by 50%. Batteries are still expensive, but it is in the interest of some consumers to buy them so that they can even out their use of electricity and make savings. Obviously, any advice that they can get, and that was partly what was behind the government's and Ofgem's smart systems flexibility hand, would be of use to those consumers.
Meters that are installed in our homes, the more potential there will be for battery storage. So I wonder if the Minister could reassure us that the promise the government made of 26,000 smart meters in our homes before 2020 is really going to happen.
Well, my Lords, we are on track for that, and as the Noble Baroness will be aware, there is legislation coming forward dealing with this point. I hope that we will get there. I don't see any reason why we should not.
My Lords, would my noble friend not agree that one way of changing the dynamics of energy supply would be to approve the Swansea tidal lagoon as quickly as possible, a decision on which has been pending for rather a long time?
My noble friend makes a very interesting point. No doubt that will be addressed, but it is somewhat wide of the question relating to battery storage. But obviously it will have an effect on our production of electricity overall.
In the summer, and the driverless and electric vehicle charging point bill, which is currently in the House of Lords, why is there so little in that bill to incentivise people to purchase batteries?
Well, my Lords, I don't think there is so little, and I think there is quite enough to encourage people to buy batteries. That's why they are, and that's why we've also seen a reduction in the price of those batteries.